Good day, traders. Edge with High Tech Trading Analysis. Today I want to talk about a couple of my volume profile indicators. But before I can do that, we probably need to talk a little about the basics. What is volume profile? How is it displayed? What is it I'm even talking about? Okay, so the chart in front of you is a crude oil chart. Today is October 9th. In the right hand corner of the chart, you'll see that we're on the 1145 bar. That's this information up here at the top is telling me the date of the bar that I'm looking at here and the time that it's going to close and the amount of time I have left before I reach this time. Just a handy little thing I do, and it actually, if I go to the right, you can see this tells me the date that I am on and the bar that I'm looking at. Now it's still telling me that there's 12 minutes left on the current bar, not this bar, but I do that for myself just to help analysis. You can see down at the bottom left hand part of the chart, there's a 263. That means that there's 263 ticks from the top of the chart to the bottom of the chart. I want to know what the range of my chart y-axis is so that just at a quick easy glance I can tell what type of risk reward I might be expecting if I trade from the top to the bottom. Those are just a couple things that I display on my chart, as well as the instrument in this. But outside of that, this is the current day. This is Monday, October 9th. Our high, our low, and this is where we closed Friday and opened last night. So we're looking at an extended trading hour charts. Usually opens Sunday night for me, Sunday night at 5 o'clock and goes through Friday, 4 o'clock. Now, each day, these are pretty basic and what I would consider important levels that everybody should be watching. What was the high of the day? What was the low of the day? And what was the close of the day prior to that? When we open today, this is where we closed at yesterday. As we trade through the day, we want to know where we're at in relation to where it closed last Friday. That gives us a lot of information. That gives us our net change ultimately. So down here below, we see this is Monday, October 9th. So far, we've got about 317,000 contracts traded. We've got only a 60 tick range, which is not much for crude, and a -3 RF rotational factor. That's kind of a whole different methodology, and we can talk about that another time. But so far, the net change is we're currently trading 33 cents or 33 ticks above yesterday's close. Now, Friday, we closed $1.50 down from Thursday's close. This is all important information. But now that we have this, we're here to talk about volume profile. And what is volume profile? It's a charting technique. They call it an advanced charting technique that allows us to display the trading activity, the volume at specific price over a period of time. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that we're tracking the volume traded at, let's open this up and let's look at this day. We had a low, we had a high, we had a total volume of 573,000 plus or minus, right? Now we started off trading here and we ended up trading here, kind of giving us a range. We're looking to try to figure out how much trading activity was at each price level between the high and the low. So here, the easiest thing for this might be the easiest thing for me to show you. Okay, I'm going to trade bar types, and this is just kind of what I've done for a TPO bar type for me. Some of you might know what that means, but it's irrelevant here. This is the first bar of our session for the day, and this is where we're starting to count our high and our low. And you know what, I usually show the midpoint of the day as well. It's just another point that I look at. Okay, so I have the high, the low, the midpoint of this day, and now I'm starting a new day. Now I want a representation of the volume that took place at each price level between the high and the low. So each time I trade, I'm going to put a quantity here. In this bar, we traded up and down at Cal. It could have gone up and down 3 or 4 times. Each time we're going to accumulate the volume that traded at that price, and we're going to put a number there. So 56, 83, 105, doesn't matter. We're going to put a volume to the contracts traded at that price level. Okay, and now here at the end of the day, we're going to add a cross. Okay, we've got X, Y, 1, 2, 3. We'll add a cross, and when we get to the cross, we'll put a total there. So now we have the total volume contracts traded at each one of these price levels going between here and here. Okay, let's widen this up a little bit and go to about here. So each one of these has our prices, and we've summed them up going from high to low. Now we're going to display that in a form of a histogram. Now the histogram isn't actually a representation specifically and directly of that total volume, meaning there wasn't 10 contracts traded here and this is 10 pixels, and 10,000 contracts traded here, 10,000 pixels would be over here. So I guess what we're saying is it's not an actual representation of the total volume, it's a representation of the percentage of each value to the highest value. Okay, now to try to make that simple, somehow or another we need to adjust our histogram or our graph in a way, whether it's big or small, however we want it to be, but it needs to be a fixed type thing, unless you make it a percentage of the chart, yes, but somehow or another we're fixing our histograms to be a certain number of size. And now we take the largest volume at price, whatever price had the most volume in it, and we're saying that that is now going to be our peak volume, or our point of control, or our volume point of control. It's kind of a matter of nomenclature at this point. I call it the point of control. Many will scream at me and say that's a market profile terminology and it's only associated to TPOs, not volume. It's all nomenclature. It means all the same thing. Whether you're talking about it traded there the most time or whether it traded there the most volume. Okay, so you're going to hear me use terminology between market profile and volume profile. I crisscross them a lot. So again, first of all, we want to find in each one of these, in order to understand the representation of this chart in all actuality, we find the volume point of control. We find the largest price level at which the most volume traded at. And we take that total sum value and we stretch it out as far as we can to our whatever our fixed value is, whatever our percentage is. We say that that POC, that value, the highest value at whatever price, equals the full extent of whatever it is. Now, in my case, if we go into my indicators, we can see here in the sessions that I have got this set to 180 pixels, or my histogram width. If I set this to 250, my histogram's much bigger. But it needs to be set so that aesthetically you can easily manipulate your charts and not have things get in the way of each other. Right now, I might look at a percentage of the session period, but as I get into this further, you'll see that although we're looking at days right now, we can look at weeks and months and contracts and however we want to look at this. So for right now, I'm just going to go back and set that on 180 and leave it as the default. This is how that would come up. Each one of these histograms is a fixed width. My POC value is that width. All of the rest of the values is a percentage of the volume at that price to the highest volume displayed, the POC. So each one of these isn't the total number of volume here, no matter where you, well, I'm not going to say no matter what you look at, but the proper way to, the way that this is drawn properly in an histogram is what I'm explaining to you right now. So now at this point, from a volume profile standpoint or a market profile standpoint, we try to find a value area. A value area is defined where a certain number of percent of the overall volume for the overall area took place. So we know that 551,000 contracts traded on this day. And we can see a histogram of how that plays out. Now, from a market profile standpoint, they look at one standard deviation, which is 68.2. I believe it's been adopted by most people to just look at 70% of the volume that's traded over the day is considered what's in value. And if it trades outside of either the upper or the lower limit of that, then you're out of value. People talk about retail and wholesale all the time. Again, it's terminology. So now that we have this, though, let's just for now, let's turn the midpoint off. Got our high, our low, our close, our POC, right? And then we're showing up a histogram of the volume. So now we need to graphically represent that. And how we do this is we start from the POC and we count two price levels up and we take the sum of that volume, and then we count two price levels down and we take the sum of that value. The highest of the two gets counted and we start again. Now we go down to the next two price levels that aren't counted already on this side and compare them to the same two price levels on this side that we did before because they're not counted yet. And these two or more, they get counted. These do not. We move down to the next two price levels and we do this for the whole thing. So that now that we're starting, we're not just arbitrarily starting anywhere. We're starting at the most volume. We're working our way up and we're working our way down. So we started here, ran to there, and we display the value area, or the area, whatever we define in my particular indicator. You can define however you want to see that, whatever percentage you want to see. So let's do this. Let's take these off of full session lines. It might be just a hair easier to see. You know, I take the time to explain specifics. You know, a lot of people would just say, well, you know, the algorithm, my special algorithm. Look, if you don't understand exactly what it is that's being displayed on your chart and why and how, yeah, I find it hard to believe that that can bring you success. So let's get back to this. We're displaying a representation of volume traded at price. Okay, so we've got today, this is developing, right? What we're really looking at is yesterday's. Let's extend yesterday's. Let's hide today's. Today's isn't as important. It's still developing. From a market profile standpoint, what we want to do is, if you're playing in a range day per se, if you're expecting this to be our trading range for the day, or even possibly a reversal breakout back up, we want to buy value area low, and we want to sell value area high. And that turned out to be, you know, that turned out to work very well here on this day. Doesn't always turn out to work well. It looks real good right now. Trust me, it doesn't always look that good. But that's one of the aspects. Okay, let's go back and turn that off. Now you can see with a little manipulation there, I just set that to contract, and now I'm looking at this developing contract here with last contract with their values extended, and we can see that even from a contract perspective, we came right down to the value area of the last contract, value area high of the last contract, bounced off and possibly going back up to retest this high up here. Now, again, I tend to look at things in, you know, in ranges, and I would do again the same thing we did earlier between there, and I would be looking at halfway. So here to halfway, we want to check our aggression level to the upside before it could fall all the way back down to this area. But, you know, again, that's just thinking about it. And that's showing you that however you want to look at this, if you want to add daily and weekly, it's just a matter of throwing two of the same indicators on the chart, setting up the properties of a different value, and moving on. Okay, so let's take all this stuff back to normal. Give me just a second. Okay, I'll just stop here for a second. See, this is kind of what this is about what I'm looking at on a 30-minute chart. I'm looking at these type of bars. I might not look at quite so much information, but what I'm trying to pick out here through these type of bars is information like this, right? They're everywhere. They're everywhere. All right. Again, that's kind of a little off topic, but I just thought I'd mention that I've been asked why I use that type of bar, and I don't, other than on this chart. As far as other features go, I think we've pretty much covered them all. There's a ton of individual features. If you don't want to see the histogram and all you want to do is just look at certain values on your chart, you can do that. You can pretty much display it any way that you want to see it. All right, if you have any questions, you can always reach out through Skype or just leave a response below. Thanks.